Welcome to Security Glazing for Schools, an AIA presentation produced by the National Glass Association. The NGA is a registered provider with the American Institute of Architects Continuing Education Systems. This course on security glazing for schools is registered and accredited by the AIA, and one learning unit of health, safety, and welfare credit is awarded for completing this presentation. This presentation is a study of the types and applications of security glazing used in schools. It will review the various threats posed to school buildings, including basic, enhanced, ballistic protection, forced entry, assault, and blast mitigation. It will also cover the difference between safety and security and how that dictates the building materials used in order to protect the individuals inside. Upon completion of this course, learners will be able to recognize security threats to individuals in educational facilities, explain the importance of school to communities, summarize voluntary guidelines and current legislation trends, compare and contrast the concept of safety glazing versus security glazing, outline current glazing options for forced entry assaults, and list the applicable security test standards. Let's start with some background information. What's the reason behind needing security glazing in schools in the first place? According to the FBI, an active shooter is defined as an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. Active shooter events happen most frequently in retail and commerce spaces, open spaces, and in educational facilities. Since 2013, there were at least 1,322 incidents of gunfire on school grounds, which resulted in 436 deaths and 936 injuries nationwide. This map of incidences shows the issue is widespread throughout the United States. Active shooter events in schools are becoming more frequent. Note that from 2020 to midway through 2024, the instances of shots fired on school grounds with injuries and/or deaths has already surpassed the number of incidences in the previous decade. In 2020 and 2021, there were 190 active shooter events in schools, despite many schools holding fewer in-person school days during the pandemic. In 2024, from January to September, there were at least 85 incidents of gunfire on school grounds, resulting in 42 deaths and 90 injuries nationwide. Schools are used for more than just teaching. In hurricane-prone zones, as a hurricane is approaching, the emergency response teams may set up cots in school buildings to create a sheltered space for people to ride out the storm. School buildings may also be used for command centers, community activities, polling and voting functions, and much more. This is why it's critical that the school buildings themselves are safe and secure. In the fall of 2022, about 55.1 million students were enrolled in public and private elementary and secondary schools, with about 3.7 million full-time teachers accompanying them. So many feel that schools should be the safest place children could be, and security is a critical design consideration that should be continually reviewed from the design phase, through construction, and into building use. According to a 2016 report by the Department of Education's National Center for Education Statistics, there are nearly 132,000 K-12 schools operating in the United States. Of those, approximately 96,000 are public schools with an average age of 42 years old. Looking at the dates, some of these schools did not have any glazing standards in place when they were built. As you see, both ANSI Z 97.1 and CPSC 16 CFR 1201 noted on screen, these two standards were also harmonized in 2016. When choosing windows and doors for schools, it's important to understand the difference between safety glazing and security glazing. Let's take a look at what those differences are. Safety glazing is glazing that has passed ANSI Z97.1 testing to reduce cutting and piercing injuries when broken with accidental human impact. The basic level of safety glazing is based on accidental human impact forces and glass containment upon breakage. Often written into building codes, the intent is to ensure the glass has enough strength to withstand accidental impact with the glass, and also has requirements that glass fragments be contained to avoid injury. The products rated for this category are recommended for situations such as slowing immediate entry through glass and reducing the ability of someone to reach through an opening to release a door handle. Products such as laminated glazing or surface-applied safety films are readily available to meet applicable test standards. In contrast, security glazing is designed to resist intentional attack, to protect the building envelope, and slow down or deter forced entry attempts. As of the year 2024, there are no requirements in the building codes for security glazing. Rather, security glazing is tested according to voluntary standards. One of the consistent characteristics between safety and security glazing is the ability to keep glass shards small enough to reduce injury or to keep it in place and deter immediate penetration. That typically occurs by tempering the glass or using a material that is attached to the glass to enhance the performance. Tempered glass is known to break in small pieces, and when appropriately processed is therefore deemed as safety glazing. However, once it's broken, it does not provide penetration resistance. Penetration resistance comes from the use of surface-applied films, interlayer films, or curing resins. Next, we'll discuss what guidance is available for schools related to security windows and doors. Here are some of the actions school districts are taking. New school security requirements are being considered at the federal level and in many states. Districts are spending millions of dollars to harden schools with new security measures and equipment. Children are spending class time on active shooter drills, parents are buying bulletproof backpacks, and the Department of Homeland Security has released documents to guide schools and school districts. At least 53 new school safety laws were passed in the United States in 2018. But is this enough? School attacks are rarely sudden and impulsive, and others usually know the attacker's plan and idea before the attack. The Department of Homeland Security offers guidance for preventing and protecting against gun violence, including options for developing emergency plans of action and identifying potential behavioral warning signs. These signs could include increasingly erratic, unsafe, or aggressive behaviors, hostile feelings of injustice or perceived wrongdoing, drug and alcohol abuse, marginalization or distancing from friends and colleagues, changes in performance at work or school, sudden and dramatic changes in home life or in personality, pending civil or criminal litigation, and observable grievances with threats and plans of retribution. In 2012, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security published a 370-page primer on designing safer schools in case of terrorist attacks and school shootings. It outlines a multi-layer approach to school security, including design recommendations, including using extensive glazing at main entrances to enhance visual surveillance to parking lots and pedestrian routes, installing openings or windows in solid walls to make areas adjacent to the school without line of sight visible from the interior. Consider burglary and ballistic resistance glazing in high-risk school areas. Consider steel window frames securely fastened or cement grouted in the surrounding structure. And consider the use of laminated glass. FEMA has set some guidelines to help design a safer school as well. These are to place windows away from doors, place horizontal windows 6 feet above the finished floor, and consider using steel window frames securely fastened or cement grouted to the surrounding structure. So what does the National Building Code say about building safer and more secure schools? Glass and glazing requirements are described in Chapter 24 of the IBC. Safety glazing is required in hazardous locations, and laminated glass is required in sloped glazing, skylights, and glass railing applications. Laminated glass is also required in walkways and elevator applications. But there is no requirement for security glazing in the IBC. Recall, the intent of safety glazing is to ensure the glass has enough strength to withstand accidental impact with the glass, and also has requirements that glass fragments be contained to avoid injury. Safety glazing is not designed for security. In contrast, security glazing is designed to protect against intentional threats, protect the building envelope, and slow down or deter forced entry attempts. In fact, the only reference to security glazing in the building code is for fire-rated glazing. Glass can be tested to meet various criteria for safety and security. We'll cover some commonly used industry standards and test methods now. Forced entry resistant glazing is designed to increase the amount of time required to gain entry. This additional time is intended to allow for the enactment of lockdown protocols. These products may be used in areas with high risk of prolonged attack or in critical areas such as entry vestibules. Forced entry resistant glazing should also resist penetration from handheld or hand-thrown objects such as hammers, crowbars, bats, knives, bricks, and rocks. ASTM F1233 covers blunt and sharp impacts, as well as thermal and chemical attacks. ASTM F1915 covers larger blunt and char impacts. UL 972 covers burglary with the ball drop test, and ASTM E2395 covers window and door system tests using different tools on the framing and missile impacts on the glazing. The Enhanced Forced Entry Voluntary Standard is ASTM F3561, which is a mechanical test in which glass is weakened with a ballistic attack, then impacted multiple times with a 100-pound impactor. Please note that products in this category are intended to meet the requirements for forced entry resistant glazing after being weakened by ballistic assault. They are not designed for ballistic classification, thus the bullets may penetrate the glazing. Forced entry resistant testing can include shooting through the glass to weaken it, followed by a physical impact with various weapons. The glazing classification would carry an indication of the type of ballistic assault used along with the forced entry classification. The goal is to resist entry for an adequate amount of time to allow for the arrival of emergency response personnel. Bullet-resistant glazing is designed to resist penetration from a variety of firearm ammunitions. Several examples of bullet-resistant laminated glazing include all-glass laminates, glass-clad polycarbonate laminates, glass laminates containing other rigid polymers, laminated polycarbonates, and glass or exposed plastic laminates, including exposed polycarbonate or PET. Bullet-resistant glazing provides an improved safety barrier against bullets and related flying glass or plastic fragments, called spall or splinters. These three standards on screen address bullet-resistant glazing material testing. The General Services Administration and Department of Defense standards for blast-resistant glazing can substantially reduce injury from flying glass resulting from direct blast shock waves, called overpressures. When properly designed, framed, and anchored, blast-resistant glazing is capable of maintaining the integrity of the building envelope following an explosion and reducing interior damage. Blast-resistant glazing may offer some level of burglary or forced entry resistance, but without testing to burglary or forced entry standards, how much resistance is not yet quantifiable. Also, this glazing is not typically bullet resistant without being tested to a ballistic threat level. Next, we'll cover how to specify safety and security glazing. In many buildings, there will be more than one threat that may affect the design of glazing. To accommodate multiple threats, the glazing will require test reports showing compliance to these threats. In addition, other attributes such as sound attenuation, ultraviolet resistance, and energy performance may be required. The glazing system may incorporate high-performance coatings to achieve better energy performance, or tinted interlayers within the glass slides for aesthetics. The final specification of the security glazing is based on a comprehensive review of the desired performance attributes. What are some of the makeups of the glazing? The following slides will show examples. Tempered glass can be tested and certified as safety glazing. Tempered glass is typically known as break-safe glass. When broken, it breaks into small cubes. This is why it's probably in your school if it was built prior to 1990. Glass with surface-applied plastics or films can also be designed as safety glazing. Daylighting is mentioned in all of these slides because studies show that in schools with access to daylighting, there's a 21% increase in student test scores and improved student behavior, meaning they're more focused and more aware. And schools also note higher retention rates of teachers as well. There are various application methods of surface-applied films that can affect the impact resistance and post-breakage glass shard retention. Examples on this slide include a daylight attachment, where the film is applied only to the glass surface outside the frame, a mechanical attachment, where the film is anchored to the frame by rigid or flexible means, and a wet glaze attachment, where a sealant is used to anchor the film to the frame. Laminated glass is comprised of 2 or more lights of glass and 1 or more plies of interlayer. Interlayer films are used in laminated glass and are typically referenced by the words interlayer, films, foil, or folios. The use of the word film in the context of security glazing is an all-encompassing term and can refer to all the material types referenced above. Use of the particular word is dependent upon the geographic region and level of engagement within the glazing specification. A laminated insulating glazing unit, or IGU, would typically be used for exterior glazing. Double laminated insulating glazing is also possible, as shown in the diagram on the right. Glass plastic laminates may provide resistance to forced entry, ballistics, and blast while retaining glass fragments. The ability to retain glass fragments is known as no-spall. This chart compares test standards for safety and security. These standards apply to educational facilities as well as other buildings requiring safety and/or security measures. Basic safety standards test for accidental human impact. Building codes require windows and doors meeting basic safety standards in specific designated areas where accidental impact could occur. Enhanced impact test standards simulate weakening the glazing with impacts. Products meeting these standards could help to deter entry. Forced entry is the next category shown. These tests include repeated impacts to the glazing. Glazing products meeting forced entry standards could delay entrance for longer duration. The category of pre-weakened forced entry standards test ballistic assault of the glazing followed by forced entry impact. And glazing tested to pre-weakened forced entry standards may be designed for very high-risk areas, providing extended deterrence time and potential protection of building occupants. The final category shown, ballistic resistance, tests with various ammunition classes. We'll now look at examples of security glazing in educational buildings. This example shows a security upgrade to the visitor entrance of a school. The existing door frame and side light were reconfigured with glass-clad polycarbonate bullet-resistant glass. A speaker and deal tray were added for communication between visitors and school staff. Glass-clad polycarbonates are made with outer plies of glass and inner sheets of polycarbonate. This is considered a balanced construction. The outer glass plies provide abrasion resistance, and the inner core of polycarbonate improves physical attack resistance. There may be one sheet of polycarbonate in the laminate or multiple sheets of polycarbonate to provide higher levels of forced entry protection. Glass-clad polycarbonates are often used in detention facilities. Additional details in this example show that a glass-clad polycarbonate was tested to UL 752, the 11th edition, to level 2. And there is a level 1 bullet-resistant deal tray and shelf, and a two-way electronic communicator that is battery operated. This is an example of a strategy designed for enhanced security at the school's main entrance. Double entry systems in schools can provide a secure space to screen visitors before allowing them to enter the second set of doors to access the interior of the school. The interior doors and adjacent side lights and transoms can be designed with security glazing, providing forced entry resistance or bullet resistance. Between the two sets of doors, school staff can interact with visitors via transaction windows with security glazing. This is another example of a strategy designed for enhanced security at the school's main entrance. As an individual approaches from outside, the school's double doors with reflectance make it hard to see in. But looking out, glass provides the visibility that is encouraged to see oncoming assailants. This school building includes security glazing, reflectiveness to reduce the ability to see inside, double doors, side lights, clear view from the inside, and a panic bar exit. This new construction example illustrates how security glazing can be decorative with playful colors. The glass laminator provided laminated and insulating laminated glass with colorful interlayers. The curtain wall is designed for forced entry resistance and also provides enhanced acoustic performance to block outside noise. Ballistic rated glass is not needed everywhere. Schools can choose forced entry or ballistic rated glass based on a risk assessment specific to their location and unique needs. This is an example combining security and fire-rated glazing. The building code requires fire-rated glazing in exit corridors to allow time for building occupants to evacuate in case of fire. Fire-rated windows and doors can be designed to resist both fire and security threats. Inversely, security glazing is available for all threat levels, along with fire protection or fire resistance ratings. In this example, note the exterior door systems use reflective glazing to make it more difficult to see inside from outside, while allowing those inside the school to see approaching potential threats. This school also uses the double entry system seen in earlier examples. The interior security wall has security-rated windows, side lights and transoms, and is fire-rated. This application also has enhanced acoustic performance, blocking unwanted noise. In this example, we'll review a renovation project, its challenges and solutions. The challenge for this addition and renovation project included allowing building access for students and staff, while also being able to control who else is allowed in the building. And the interior entrance must meet fire-rated code requirements and protect against intruder events. In the solution, the interior doors and side lights that create the new vestibule needed to meet fire-rated code requirements. There was an additional desire for these areas to meet forced entry test standards as well. Clear and wireless fire-resistive rated, forced entry bullet-resistant transparent wall panels were used with a fire-resistive rated perimeter frame and door. The glass meets ASTM F1233 Class 1.4. It meets Impact Safety Rated Test Standards ANSI Z97.1 and CPSC 16 CFR 1201 Categories 1 and 2, and bullet-resistant ratings up to UL Level 3. In this example, the school district wanted to renovate a school and bolster safety and security. The design called for the front office to be relocated and openings added for security glazing. For the door to the main office, the school desired forced entry and bullet-resistant glass, but there was the additional challenge that building codes required fire-rated glazing in this opening. The solution was a fire-resistive rated frame and doors combined with fire-resistive rated and bullet-resistant glass laminated to transparent fire-resistive rated transparent wall panels. The result is a safe, light, and airy entrance to the school for both students, staff, and visitors. Utilizing this multifunctional glazing improved staff surveillance of students and guests, bolstered safety, and created a more light and welcoming area for the front office. In this new construction example, security glazing is used in curtain wall and punched windows. The design includes extensive daylighting and exterior sun shading. Plus, the layout of the school building creates a secure area for students away from the street. This example of new construction includes security glazing designed for forced entry resistance, plus enhanced acoustics and daylighting of the lobby. In this new construction example, the classrooms have bullet-resistant windows. The exterior facade includes decorative glass in light-hearted, fun colors with an unobstructed view to approaching threats at ground level. Exterior vertical sunshades help block glare, and the windows also help to attenuate noise. We now understand why security glazing is needed in schools, how security glazing is tested, and examples of installed security glazing. How can we increase the security of students and faculty in school buildings? Let's take a look. There are multiple actions the public is taking to respond to threats in schools. Some of these, as listed on screen, include security guards and police visits to schools, surveillance and alarm systems, security glazing in doors and windows, physical barriers, bullet resistance backpack inserts, arming teachers, hardening door hardware and frame replacements, window and doors with enhanced glazing replacements, adding bars and grills to existing windows, and adding window films to the interior side of the glass. Note, window film applied to standard window glass is not bullet resistant. The film may retain glass fragments and help hold the glass in place when the film is anchored to the window frame. Schools are looking for a realistic and economic way of achieving security from armed assailants. Most school districts cannot afford ballistic protection on a new construction, much less a retrofit application. However, they need a way to delay an assailant's entry into the building. They need time to react to the threat and engage their security policies and programs, thereby allowing first responders time to react. There are many various degrees of window and door products for different applications that are rated for different levels of protection. The National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, has a standard for active shooter events. Development of the NFPA 3000 standard for an active shooter or hostile event response program was initiated by a request to NFPA from Chief Otto Drozd of Orange County, Florida Fire and Rescue. Chief Drozd approached NFPA following the deadly shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. He said first responders needed a uniform method of preparation and communication among all of the involved first responder units, fire, police, EMS, and hospitals, as well as unified incident command during an event and common recovery strategies for communities following these events. NFPA offers online training to qualify individuals to work with communities to develop plans according to NFPA 3000. The International Code Council Board of Directors established the Ad Hoc Committee on Building Safety and Security. The committee directive is to comprehensively explore and assess building safety and security through a review of current code requirements as they relate to developing the necessary balance between facility security and safety considerations. The committee also reviewed existing guides, white papers, reports, and standards to identify best practices for the design and layout of new and existing facilities. The committee concluded in December 2022 that building safety and security is of the utmost importance. The design, layout, and building features in both new and existing buildings can have an impact on both safety and security. Any suggested revisions to the current code requirements based on the assessment of the committee will be processed as proposed code changes to the international codes. We'll now review some conclusions and references based on this presentation's content. In conclusion, school structures need to be functional. School security threats and attacks are unpredictable. Security glazing of the exterior envelope is critical to help provide reaction time for occupants and first responders. And the need for building codes to engage all stakeholders to enhance building security is a necessity. The additional references noted on this slide may be consulted for further information or statistics on security incidents in schools. This concludes the NGA's AIA Continuing Education course, Security Glazing for Schools. Thank you for your participation.